Okay, we're going back on record with the Jefferson County Grand Jury at 11:15, September 21st. We still have Detective Jeff Ball, who's been sworn. Detective Ball, part of your investigation, did that include reviewing all of the interviews of the, first of all, the 7 officers that have been conducted, and then some others.
Yes, ma'am.
So go ahead and begin with the first interview.
Yes, the first interview we're going to listen to today is with Sergeant John Mattingly. This interview was conducted on March the 25th. It was conducted by the Louisville Metro Police Department Public Integrity Unit. The officers conducting the interview are Sergeant Amanda Seeley and Sergeant Jason Nance.
What day was it?
March 25th.
Okay, thank you. And in the back, if you could raise your hand and make sure you know you can hear it well. Okay. Thank you.
This is Sergeant Amanda Seeley of the Louisville Metro Police Department's Public Integrity Unit. Today's date is Wednesday, March 25th, 2020. The current time is 12:55 hours. We are present at 3672 Taylor Boulevard at the Public Integrity Office. This will be a recorded statement from Sergeant John Mattingly. The statement is in reference to PIU case number 20-019. Present with me are Sergeant John Mattingly, Attorney Steve Shoring, and Sergeant Jason Vance of the Public Integrity Unit. Sergeant, are you aware this statement is being video and audio taped?
Yes.
This is me with your approval.
Yes.
Please state your full name and spell your last name.
Jonathan Mattingly, Mattingly.
What is your code number?
2465.
And where are you currently assigned?
The CID Interdiction Squad.
How long have you been with that unit?
Up in that narcotics before they changed or since they changed it?
Either.
Been up narcotics since November 2016.
And how long have you been with the department?
Since June 2000. Yeah.
Are you under the influence of alcohol, drugs, or any other intoxicants at this time?
No.
Are you taking any kind of medication that would affect your judgment or ability to think clearly?
No.
The next 4 questions are going to be in reference to the actual incident night on March the 13th at Springfield Drive about your uniform and treatment. Did you sustain any injuries during this situation?
Yes.
Please describe.
Sustained a gunshot wound to the upper left thigh, and it tore through the femoral artery and exited out the back of the leg.
Did you receive medical treatment?
Did.
Where and by whom?
University of Louisville Hospital by the trauma team, or several doctors, I don't know the names.
What type of uniform or clothing were you wearing at the time of this incident?
You should we give you from like the bottom up what I had on, or what? Had a black Under Armour boots on, gray pants, a black 3/4 zip Nike pullover, and I had my tactical vest on, so police on the front and back. So that's that.
Do you have the same uniform or clothing on right now?
No.
Because of statutory requirements, KRS 67C326, I'm not going to advise you of your constitutional rights prior to asking maybe any further questions. And this is the rights waiver, I'll read over this. Putting the town or the place, 3652 Taylor Boulevard. 325.
While she's doing that, let's kind of mention something you see. We actually changed the KRS that we're referencing. Yeah, it's not 15.521, it's because Louisville's a first-class city. And once it was brought to our attention, we just changed it. But it's the same privileges. Okay. Same rights.
Before you ask you any questions, you must understand your rights. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you can say, anything you say can and will be against you in the court of law. You have the right to talk to a lawyer prior to any questioning or making of any statements, and you have them present with you while you're being questioned. You cannot afford to hire a lawyer or will be appointed by the court to represent you before questioning, if you desire one. You may stop the questioning or making of any statements at any time or refusing to answer further or by requesting to consult with an attorney prior to continuing with questioning or the making of any statements. I've read this statement of my rights and I understand what my rights are. I'm willing to make a statement and answer questions. I do not want to look for... I still read that, I'm sorry.
It's a preamble of the LMP rights waiver.
Okay. I understand, know what I'm doing. My promises or threats have been made to me, no pressure or coercion of any kind will be against me. Like you should read that.
And all it says is basically you're
Yeah.
agreeing to those terms.
Sergeant, in your own words, the incident that occurred at 3003 Springfield Drive, apartment number 4, apartment 13. Give me your words of what happened and your involvement.
We were executing a search warrant for one of the other units up in CID. I think it's place-based. And about 45 minutes before we executed the warrant, I did a drive-by with my came by the house. So I did a drive-by the apartment just to get my own visual to make sure which door we were hitting. When I came up to the door, there's two apartments. It's the second door over. And there's a road router ran right in front of it. That's how we identified it. It was apartment 4 on the bottom floor on the right. So there's two doors looking directly at us, two on the side. It was the one on the inside on the right. Went back and we geared up, and it was time to swap. It was doing their thing down at 2-4 Madison. We went over Elliott, where it was. We executed ours at the same time. I was the first car in, pulled up on scene. When we got there was a vehicle that hadn't been there prior to me coming through. It was a around 2004 Toyota Sequoia. I think it was white or cream color. I pulled behind it and exited my vehicle. I went and cleared that car to make sure nobody was in it since it wasn't there prior. That time I went around the front of it, cut between the cars. We made our approach to the apartment. When you go up again, the doors on the right, there's a stairwell that goes right over the top of it. I circled all the way to the back since I was going to be one knocking on the door. So I was basically in front of the back door of the other apartment. It's just right beside it. When we all got in line, I knocked on the door, banged on it. We didn't announce the first couple because our intent was not to hit the door. Our intent was to give her plenty of time to come to the door because they said she was probably there alone. So we predetermined to give her plenty of time to come to the door. Banged on the door, no response. Banged on it again, no response. At that point, we started announcing ourselves, please come to the door. Please, we have a search warrant. While we're doing this, there was a neighbor or somebody upstairs, right on the staircase, that started arguing with Detective Henderson and Lieutenant Hoover. And they were both giving commands to go back into his apartment. And he kept saying, I wasn't really paying attention to what he was saying, something about leaving a girl alone or something like that. But while he was doing that, we were still announcing police, come to the door, police search warrant. When we banged, I probably banged on the door six or seven different time periods. Not 6 or 7 times, but 6 or 7 different times. It seems like they turned into a doorway. Probably lasted between 45 seconds and a minute. Banging on the door, and at that time I looked back at Lieutenant Hoover and he says, let's go ahead and hit it. Because at one point, probably after about the third time we banged, Mike was standing at the door and he says, I can hear something inside, I think they're coming to the door, so we thought they were coming to the door. then we didn't hear anything else, so we kept banging and announcing. And at that point, Lieutenant Hoover said, go ahead and hit it. So I looked at Mike and said, go ahead. So he hits the first time, and hits right on the door handle, didn't move the door. And every time he hits, people are announcing, please search one, please search one. Second time he hits the good spot, and it almost knocks the door open. I could see the deadbolt at an angle, and I could see a crack in the door leading into the apartment. So I said, this one's going to go. So he hit the third time, and as soon as he hit the door, came open, please search warrant, please search warrant. I go around the corner, I clear the living room on the right-hand side where you can see the sliding glass door. As I turn the corner, as soon as I cleared the threshold of the front door, I could see down the hallway. My mind works so quick in a situation so real. Because as soon as I cleared it, I'm face on about probably 20 feet away, right down the hallway. There's a bedroom door on the right, and there's the male and a female. The male's closest to the door, so it's to my right. And as I turn the doorway, he's in a stretched out position with his hands with a gun. And as soon as I clear, he fires. Boom. And it was almost like at the shooting range where two things flip at the same time. You got to shoot, no shoot. I mean, they were like shoulder to shoulder. My mind's going, this ain't right. And something's off here. Because all the doors I've made entry in, I've never seen this. And so I hit this corner and it goes boom. And as soon as the shot hit, I could feel the heat in my leg. And so I just returned fire. I got 4 rounds off. And it was like simultaneous. Boom, 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 boom. And then I went back and went down on the side of the door and then reached around. I think I got 2 more off around the corner of the door. And then I could really feel the blood on my leg. So I reached out and felt it. My hand was full of blood. I knew it hit my femoral at that point. So I scooted back on my butt and I yelled at them, I've been hit my femoral. And I scooted back, and I think at that time Miles slid up. I'm not sure. I think he was over my left shoulder behind me. I'm not sure what he was seeing. I know Tony was behind me. Mike was to the right of the door with the ram. It was Brett, Hoover, and Campbell had come up around the corner at that point from the stairs. So I'm assuming Miles was behind me because I think he was there in front of me. And so I slid back on my butt to get out of the line of fire. And for a second, I had let go of my gun. And I realized what I did, so I reached out and grabbed my gun and pulled it back. And I was like, I can't stay here. So I stood up and I hobbled out across from the door and went to where the curb is, where you step off in between the cars. And I guess Mike Campbell had stumbled. I think he stepped back when the shots fired and soon fell off the curb. Because when I went to go through the cars, I looked down and was like, my mind's going, why are you on the ground? And I tripped over and fell off the curb or something. At that point, I holstered my gun and scooted to the edge of the car, and then Hoover came out and grabbed my vest from behind and pulled me. And that's it, as far as y'all need, since that was the contact with the suspect. Or did you
No, we need to know.
I do remember when I went on the ground, I don't remember any, right there in that doorway, the breezeway, I don't really remember shots fired because I remember I was thinking this. I was putting pressure on this and I got to get that way. But I do remember when I tripped, by the time I went out and I stepped off the curb and tripped over him, I remember as soon as I hit the ground and holstered, I could hear all of a sudden boom, 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 several shots at that point, it seemed like then. And my mind couldn't play tricks on it, but I'm sure it was me when I hit the ground because I was still by myself. And then as I scooted out, Hoover grabbed me and it seemed like it got quiet after that. We get to the edge and I said, man, I've been hitting my femoral, I need a tourniquet. So Hoover said, I don't have one. He grabbed his belt and he put it on and he squeezed it and I remember reaching out and said, it's not tight enough and I need a tourniquet. And about that time, Tony James shows up, kind of going back and forth, and he comes with one. He ended up having on his vest. He goes to put his gloves on, and Hoover says, fuck your gloves, grabs the tourniquet, slides it on my leg. They start tightening up. I think somebody stepped on this hit, pushed down, somebody pushed on the leg. I can't really remember who it was, but I remember them squeezing it. And I said, I need a knife to cut this off, see where it's at. Somebody found a knife. The knife came out somewhere, and they started cutting the leg off. And I kept going, did anybody call for EMS? Because they were just a quarter mile down the road with that. I kept going, where's EMS? And so I got my radio trying to call, but apparently they had some kind of standoff on channel 2 or the main channel I was on. So they just got some clicks, they didn't know what I was saying. Then I could hear Brett yell 10:30 on the radio. And as they're squeezing that, I lay back, I could hear him yell 10:30. Then I hear the B car getting there not too long after that. And I can remember Hoover saying, time to ram the gate. And so then Brett, I could hear him yelling at him on the radio, ram the gate. And then I hear the gate get ran, boom. EMS still hadn't gotten there. I kept going, where's EMS? Where the fuck is EMS at? Because the pain wasn't really the shot, it was up in the groin and the back. And I'm thinking, man, at this point, okay, we got the tourniquet, good. Now we gotta get this leg, I don't lose my leg. So at some point, EMS shows up. It seemed like forever, I don't know how long. So they finally showed up, and I remember them saying, let's get in the car and get him up. They kept saying, do you want to go in the car to Universal? I knew EMS was so close and they had stuff we didn't. So like, no, let's just wait for them. They've got to be here in a second. And so finally they show up. They say, throw him in my car. Miles said, throw him in my car. I remember walking to a car, so I'm not getting in the back seat because I knew my leg, I couldn't get down and back up. And so they said, put him in the trunk. I remember hearing that. The trunk was popping. And Hoover said, no. And he went to shut the trunk, and there was some gun kits hanging out. So they shut it down, put me on the trunk, or shut the trunk, started picking me up, and Hoover has my legs, and the guy in the back didn't lift my back up right, and I almost went to the ground. And then he puts me, Hoover said, get underneath his arms. So they put me on the trunk. I'm holding on to it as we're driving toward the gate, and I saw the EMS guy walking toward me. And I made contact with them prior to make sure they were our EMS drivers. And the young guy's walking toward me with his bag on his shoulder. And as I'm looking, I see the EMS wagon start to back up and go the other way, leave us. And I yelled at him and I said, where the fuck is he going? And he's like, I said, call him on the radio. He said, I tried, he didn't answer. I said, try again. So he tried again, all of a sudden he stopped, and the EMS starts coming back. So we get up to the front to where the gate's at. And I'm not sure if the other guys went or what they were doing, but Hoover finally said, fuck it, hold on to my neck. He scooped me up, and he walked me around the car. Somebody pushed the gate down, we stepped over it. We got to the wagon, got in the back of the wagon at that point.
We've got a couple photos of the same. It's kind of a reference. So photo 1 represents the entire area, and we'll just sub-label the actual building where this is in place. We're going to label it as A.
Okay.
We'll use B as the gate. We heard Jay say that we're going to use this photo to kind of make sure that we understand you correctly as far as like how you came out. So this is photo 2. This is it's a closer photo of the building where it took place. This is the breezeway and then the sidewalk and various kind of like a little handicap access going in here where the sidewalk kind of veers to the parallels the building. And there's a step or a couple of steps there. If you can, and obviously the cars in this photo do not represent the cars in this. Right. But we wanted, some kind of visual to understand everything happening. So the breezeway comes out, there's a set of stairs that goes to the second floor of the apartment building. As I understand what you said, you come out and you go between like this car, where this car's parked in the photo and this car's, and Campbell is falling down.
Right. Yeah, he's in between here. There's a car here. When I come out, step off this curb and go in between here. Pretty sure exactly because that would make more sense. I don't think I would have veered out. I think I went to the path of least resistance here.
Okay. Now, just from working the scene and all that, we all know that there was a white SUV. You said you're sitting as well. A Toyota Sequoia. Was your police vehicle parked immediately behind it?
Directly behind it.
And where would you? I'm gonna let you mark it. The two
As far as where
different,
they were,
yeah, Sequoia and Interlochen.
I'm pretty sure this Sequoia was up just a little bit further, right here. Not the others.
And then, so where do you think the first aid was given? I mean, if you had to guess.
If I had to guess, it was right here.
Okay. And at some point, the vehicle they used, you talked
Oh,
about.
no, I'm sorry. It may have been right. I know I came through the corner and drove this somewhere. I just can't remember if we went on this side or this side. I think it was out here.
Okay.
Yeah, because then Miles's car pulled up here.
Right.
Yeah.
And you remember what kind of car it was?
His, Impala? No, a Maxim. Not a Maxim, one below.
Nissan.
Yeah.
So they used that car, put you on the back, on top of the deck lid,
Right.
and it kind of like helping you sit, carrying you.
Right, so carry that far.
Right. Because it's, you know, as you see this first photo, I mean, it's a
It's
pretty
pretty long.
Yeah, it wouldn't be very efficient for someone to carry.
Yeah. So, and I held onto the black, there's like a radio antenna, there's a black flap. I held on to that. I remember that.
Okay, so they evacuate you to this gate here in the photo.
Correct.
And at that point, as you said in your statement, Lieutenant Hoover had requested patrol to ram the gate to open it.
Correct.
Because it kind of separated the property.
Yeah, he was trying to get EMS in here because he knew, he probably assumed at that point they would get confused if they came down and realized it doesn't match, you have to come all the way around.
Right, and it's an obvious, the most efficient way to evacuate
Yes.
an injured person. Okay.
Correct.
So they get you to the gate, and then they shuttle you into the ambulance at some point. I know there was some confusion, communication issue between you guys and EMS
Right.
personnel, and then you're transported to the hospital. I don't have a street view of the actual, the front of the apartment, just because, probably because of this gate, the location of this gate, Google they don't have a street view of this location. It actually only have all the aerial views of it. So to go back to when you guys, prior to you guys, trying to make it, is that you stated that you guys knocked on the door, and your whole intentions were just to get the occupant or occupants in the house to come to the door.
Correct.
Now, what kind of information, if any at all, were you guys given in the pre-operational briefing?
We were told that the target, the main target, the male, had packages sent to this location. She possibly held dope for him, received the packages, and held his money.
Okay. And do you remember the name of the target on the search warrant?
No.
Because it wasn't a search warrant that you or your personnel are assigned to you.
Right. We didn't write it. We didn't do any investigation. We didn't know the background.
And you guys were only there to assist, you got multiple units within CID were trying to serve multiple ones.
Right. It was a heavy manpower intensive operation. They just needed bodies.
Okay, other than, what you just said, do you remember anything about the pre-operational?
As far as for us on that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, they said they did not believe she had children or animals, but they weren't sure. Said she should be there alone because they knew where their target was. And I guess they thought that he was her only boyfriend or only acquaintance. The whole time Mike watched the house, there was no change in lights coming on or off. The only thing he saw was the light on the bedroom and the TV.
So he was able to see some type of or some form of illumination in the
From
bathroom.
bedroom.
Do you remember which window that was?
Yeah, it was this one. Yeah, this one right here, I believe. Or I think it was that one. I'm not sure. I don't know.
One of the bedrooms.
Right, on the bedroom. So when we went by, I don't remember seeing it lit up below when we pulled up.
Okay.
Do you know what time, like, started?
I have no idea. When we briefed, he was already on scene. We briefed at 10 o'clock. We didn't hit it until 12:40, 12:35. At 12:35 on my phone, I was calling him, telling him we were pulling around the corner, getting ready to come in.
Department 4. He was given all that information.
Right.
Okay. Go back to, you guys, your whole intentions were to have an occupant or occupants come to the board. And you characterized, the overalls knocking, announcing. Initially, it's just knocking, trying to see the door, which kind of, initiates the upstairs resident to come out and make contact with you guys.
Right.
And do you remember kind of what kind of verbal exchange?
Between upstairs?
Yes.
I remember when he first popped out, Lieutenant Hoover kind of came to I don't know if it was a low ready or kind of a up, because they didn't know who was approaching him. And I remember Brett extending his gun saying, get back in the apartment, get back in the apartment. Brett was a little bit worked up. And I remember at one point, because they kept exchanging, while we're doing this, I remember looking at Brett saying, Brett, relax. Brett, just relax. Because, while you got to pay attention to him, it's not your focus.
Right. And other than the obvious, the police logos on your attack vest, did you all identify yourselves?
I don't know if they did or not. I don't know if they said we're the police.
Because your focus was on at this point.
Yeah, I'm not the one physically knocking on the door, so I can't really pay attention to what.
And it would be dangerous for you not to stay focused on the door. We all know we refer to that as a fail phone.
Right.
So, at some point, Lieutenant Hoover decides that, you guys have waited too long, or, you've allowed a pretty sizable amount of time to go by.
Right. More than enough time for the average person, or even the disabled person to get to the door.
Right.
That's not a problem.
So the decision's made that you all are going to force entry. Correct. So you kind of went through what Nobles did as far as how you kind of forced an entry into the apartment. And you said you kind of split the pie, you're declaring the immediate threat to your right, and you come back to center, which is what we're trying to do.
Right.
And at the point that you come back to center, how much exposure do you think you had as far as like blading that, that whatever cover you can get in that entryway, which is not much.
Right. I bladed the cover until I until where the hallway meets the door. You couldn't see any more from where I was standing. So at that point, I had to step out in front of the doorway into that clearance area. So,
and that's when you see male and female almost parallel, or
yeah, they're
together,
perpendicular to each other, side by side, shoulder to shoulder. It was really almost like they were together. Again, my brain was going, what is this? This isn't normal. It's not the normal way people can stand in a house together.
And talking about that hallway, was it illuminated?
It was enough where I could see him. I did not turn my gun light on, which I'm thankful, so that his gun wasn't more attractive than my light was. I don't know if people had theirs on behind me. I could see enough to see a male on the right, a female on the left. Could I identify their faces? No. But I could actually see the handgun in his hand. I remember seeing the barrel of that as soon as we turned that corner. And as soon as it did, the flash and the heat.
And talking about, that's instance, your backdrop is an illuminated breezeway. Correct? And if you have a dark space, you have a door that's now open, and you have illumination behind you, whether you had your type of light on, whether it's not light, in your experience, I guess what I'm asking, you would be illuminated more than...
Yes, I would have the outline on me.
Right. So, and you just said this, you saw the muzzle flash, and then you feel the gunshot.
Yeah, it's the same time. Yeah, there's no difference in time.
Do you know whether or not you kind of described that you were on your butt in some position, and you speak back at some point, but did you immediately drop down?
No. I got 4 rounds off, I know that. As soon as it hit, as soon as he fired, I fired back. Boom, 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 boom. I stepped back and went down. I don't know if my leg gave out or if I just instinct from the 2 standing or 4 standing, 2 kneeling like we do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, and just get off the center. I don't know if that just kicked in. And I got off center, got behind the door. But I know I went to the left and went down. I'm not sure how. And then just came around and got 2 off. And then just got out of the car. Just let them take over. I didn't get shot in the back of the head. I didn't want to
Right, and that was kind of what I was getting to, is that, you know, because of your positioning, you know, initially when you're shot, and then rightfully so, you're returning fire, you just said, you made a conscious decision, you know, I'm now injured, I need to move so they can protect themselves and me as well. And I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No, that's it.
Okay.
That was it.
So,
I need to get out of their way to do whatever they need to do, and I didn't want to take one from them.
right.
I mean, all that comes into play in your head. Like I said, your brain is working unbelievably quick.
And we all under stress, we lose our fine motor skills, you know,
Yeah.
things kind of narrow down. So you're pulled in, we're referred to the door as we face it, so left, right. So at this point, you're always on the left-hand side of the door.
Correct.
Notice is always on the right.
Right.
And you believe the time of the shooting that Tony James and Moss Costa were behind her?
On one on my left, yes.
Okay.
Behind me.
Okay, so it'd be
To my left. On my left.
Okay, we're left. Okay.
Yes.
So, at some point, you know, I know we learned from the witness interviews that Tony had a ballistic shield. You know whether that was utilized at all? You just got it right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. But at some point,
I never saw Tony. The only face I saw that I made up clear, again, everything was kind of like shadows to me as far as who was here. I remember somebody over here, which was probably Hoover because he probably followed me out. But as I got up and left, I looked to my left to try to cross the doorway to get across. And I don't remember seeing the door, but I saw Mike underneath the stairwell. The stairwell here is the door here. And I remember him, I remember him cross down. I remember seeing his face. That's the only face I saw until I saw Kim on the ground. Those are the only two faces I recognized as I was going out.
just because your position, you know.
Right.
Are you aware whether or not there was officers with you that returned fire?
I never saw anybody return fire.
Okay.
Like I said, I heard it once I got out between cars, but right then, I don't know.
So you don't know if others firing along with you?
Yeah, no. I don't think they did, especially my initial four. I know nobody did. It was just me and this guy. That was it. Other than that, after that, I'm not really sure.
But at that point, do you think anyone would have a position where they could?
They were shot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I just want to real quick, because I just made it up, we initially were talking about seeking the door. So did the door come all the way off its hinges?
It went fast and went from right to left. So it opened from left to right and opened all the way out.
And
It was
like
wide
down the
open.
back?
I don't remember bouncing back.
And then you had mentioned, you said that the guy was stretched out. What did you mean by
I
that?
mean, both hands pushed out in a fighting stance, or a shooting stance.
Do you remember them, the occupants, saying anything to you?
Nothing.
Was it like that seemed kind of heard
Yes.
some talking, which you make out what that was in?
Not sure he heard it. I think when he heard that, I was kind of addressing whatever the situation was going on upstairs between Brett and this guy.
Would you characterize that verbal contact with that resident?
He was being-
kind of changed the tactics of the situation?
It did. It pulled away from a lot of it, and he was being belligerent. I don't know why. I mean, I don't know if he was drunk or what, but he was being very hostile from the get-go. As soon as the contact was made, he was just arguing back when they were saying, just give me a partner, just give me a partner.
But you never physically, or you never actually saw him?
No.
Okay. Because of the positioning where you were.
Right, I was underneath the overhang,
Yeah.
so I could see.
You said you guys didn't initially announce.
No, the first man was more than 9 minutes. I think after that we did. I could be sure for the second, but again, there was probably 6 or 7 different contacts, multiple banging on the doors. And after that, each one of them had police come to the door, search warrant, police search warrant. And I remember Brett, when he was arguing with this guy, while we were knocking on, police search warrant, police search warrant, police search warrant, police search warrant. I mean, he was repeating this. So the guy had nowhere to place. Because while he was in contact, while he was in contact with him, and I'm behind he's yelling at police search warrant over and over and over.
So So was Mike also knocking, or was it just you?
I was on one night.
Only one that was knocking. So was anyone else yelling these search warrant besides you?
Yes, yes, multiple people. Yeah.
So kind of at the same time,
Yeah.
all those
Just
kind
kinda
of.
how that is, yeah.
So in the pre-operational briefing, you guys just considered this location as, and I've heard this a couple times throughout this investigation, as soft target.
Right.
Based on the information that the lead had concerning the entire investigation.
Correct.
The organization of the, drug trafficking area. So that's what made it, that's what kind of made you all come up with the original, hey, I'm just gonna knock, try to get her to the door, the most passive way into the circle of the woman.
Right.
So you shot in the left leg, your wallet, where do you carry your wallet?
Front left pocket.
What do you keep in the wallet? Other than
Bank cards, credit cards, money. It's got a metal clip in the middle that holds it.
and you carry your wallet front pocket for what reason? Some guys do.
The back hurts, wearing the back hurts my back. And I remember in the EMS, I forgot this, in the EMS, the only thing left on my pants was basically what was tied under the tourniquet and what they couldn't get out of the top. My wallet was flipped inside out, or my pant pocket was flipped inside out. And I remember ripping my pocket open and pulling my wallet out and handing it to Tony because I didn't want it to get lost. And I didn't realize a bullet had gone through it at that point. And I handed it to Tony and I pulled up my ring and I did my main belt and took my vest off. And just said I didn't want this stuff get lost. And then eventually Tony realized, or somebody realized there was a hole in it and left it for ET to get.
CSU did that at the hospital, right?
Right.
Did Tony ride down with
He
you?
didn't.
So the guys from your group, the initial people were Tony James and Mike Owens.
Correct. For my unit, yeah.
We won't get into, any really specific details of your injuries. Obviously, you were shot in your leg. It was a serious injury. As far as that, you were released from the hospital on Monday.
16, yeah.
What did the doctor say as far as physical therapy?
I went to physical therapy this morning. There's some numbness that I keep feeling in the thigh and on the calf on the bottom. He said it could come back to feeling, could not, may not, just depends on the nerves regenerating. He expects, barring any other thing, there might be a knee injury now that we just discovered, some ACL, MCL stuff, maybe from stepping off the cart, I'm not sure, because the quad muscle apparently quit functioning when it hit. I knew I couldn't put weight on it, but I didn't know why. They said that quad muscle stops working, so it stops pulling your leg.
So you're looking maybe additional surgeries?
Possibly. I don't know yet. I don't have that appointment until April.
Just because of this current situation we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Is there any questions we haven't asked you that's important to us?
I think so.
Steve, you have anything?
Just to clarify, the briefing prior to the execution search warrant, was the warrant authorized, was it not, or was it not? Or do you know?
Well, I verbally heard we haven't signed as a no knock, but we're not going to go that route. We prefer you to do the knock. On the board, it was written no knock, no knock, not to announce on ours. But just because they put knock on us, that means the warrant wasn't signed a no knock. We were told it was,
Right.
but they asked us to do it the other route.
Gotcha.
So that's what we did.
That's all.
Do you know why they would have?
Had it signed and then changed.
And then prior to when you guys arrived, you guys set up your stack. Is that something you guys kind of do the same as a group, or is it just a position like that?
It depends on the what we had available to us. This breezeway was very small, and the best way to kind of go, when you go in, go left or right, you couldn't fit everybody on the left side, which is the best advantage because of the way the door swings open. You didn't want anybody exposed on the right. There was no room in the stairwell. So you just kind of fit in where you get it, and then the rest are going to have to straggle in after on the right side.
Would you describe it as a pretty, as far as the location goes? And I know there wasn't supposed to be a threat there. That it was considered a soft location, a soft target location. But as far as serving warrants, and you've got nearly 20 years of police experience, would you say that the position of that department made it extremely?
It made it a little more difficult. It's not the most difficult I've done, but it was a tight squeeze to get with guys that, especially guys that maybe you don't do all your warrants with, to know what you're doing, but everybody fell in place where they were supposed to, so. But yeah, it wasn't ideal.
It's important to know, who are the members in that group that you actually report directly to you and you work with every day?
Well, Mike Nobles works with me every day. Tony James reports to me, but he's assigned to the Jefferson County Sheriff's Highway Interdiction System. We work together every day.
So we get members of CID that don't typically work every day together.
Right.
But we're also expected to have the same tactics, I understand that. But also keep in mind that, and I know this from my experience, that when you do things with others, you kind of know what that person's, how they kind of maneuver through these situations.
Right. And the guys do a great job after the fact, so I don't want to, say anything negative about that.
Is there anything you say for the record for you? Is everything totally true to this or not?
Yes.
Include the statement, 1336.
Are there any questions?
It sounded to me like this was a little bit confusing. Like the members of the hodgepodge of the 19th, and eventually put together, and they never had to this effect. Is that about right?
They all were investigators assigned to the Interdictions Division, but as Sergeant Manley said, they all had worked together.
Right. The next thing is, from what he was saying, it sounded to me as if he actually made it into the apartment. Because it sounded like he said he saw the living room, it was clear. And then he saw the guy with the gun. And as he was trying to exit, this was early on in the statement. As he was crossing the threshold. As he was crossing the threshold. After he cleared the room.
Excuse me for interrupting. You'll have all the time to discuss with each other during your deliberations. But right now, we're asking if you have specific questions for Detective Fall about this interview.
Okay, good. My next question.
Okay, that's all. My understanding was Sergeant Manley's. My understanding. He's here. The door's breached. The door comes open. He looks as far as he can here for the door. The door's here. At some point, oh, it opens this way. See?
Yeah, stuff in there.
It goes this way. This is the door itself. This is the door. So he's here, and as the door being open, okay. Doors are breached. Door comes open. He kind of looks this way, best he can, and he talks about asking that question. He steps in here. Kind of see that hallway. Now the door's open a little bit farther than this. He looks here. That's when he sees. My understanding, he doesn't step in here. He's still right here. And that's when he sees the figures.
We just answered my next question. I don't know if he's on the left or the right. He's on the left.
Yeah, I think
Detective.
It was on the left, because he said he turned to the left, and then the living room, then he looked in the house.
okay. I'm going to read from the transcript from Sergeant Mattingly's statement, so not my interpretation, but his words that he used.
That transcript of this interview you just played.
Okay, second time hits the good spot and almost knocks the door. You can see, I can see the deadbolt at an angle, and I can see a crack in the door leading into the apartment. So I said, this one's gonna go. So he had hit it the third time. And as soon as he hit the door, came over the yelling, police search warrant, police search warrant. I go around to the corner. I could see, clear the living room on the right-hand side, we could see the sliding glass door. As I turned the corner,
This
As he turns
back.
Turn the corner, he said he's done.
he's still here. When he says he clears, he's referring to,
he's just
seeing.
looking.
I
I understand he's seeing, but then he says as he clears the corner.
as I turn,
He said turns to the
as he turns the corner, this, because right now he's looking.
Okay.
As I turn the corner, as soon as I clear the threshold of the front door,
That's what he did.
I can see down the hallway. So at that point, he clears the threshold. He's standing right on here,
Okay.
approximately. It's right here. So he's over here, remember? So the door's this way. When he clears it, his head looking this way.
Yeah, okay.
As I turn the corner, as soon as I clear the threshold of the front door, I can see down the hallway. My mind works so quick in a situation that's unreal. Because as soon as I cleared it, I'm face on about probably 20 feet away, right down the hallway. There's a bedroom door on the right. There's a male and a female. The male's closest to the door, so he's to my right. So he is here. And as I turn the doorway, and as I turn the doorway, he's in a stretched out position with his hands with the gun. He's this door here. The male said, talking about there's a door on the right. He mentions that it's this door here. He says the male said it's closest to that door. Stretched like this.
But that's kind of, because you know, when you think about it being two people.
Well, he backs up. Previously he said he sees there's the male and a female. Probably from a type thing. The doorway, he's in a stretched out position with his hands with the gun, and as soon as I clear it, he fires, boom. You know, it was almost like a shooting range. I'm sorry?
Just the thing, the middle.
Yeah, looking down the door, looking at the hallway, this way. The male, female, the male is on the right, closest to this door. Yes.
Can you clarify some of the officers' names from his because he talks about them by their first name?
Detective Mike Nobles is the one that had the Graham. He was the one on the right, on this side of the door. On this side of the door, striking the door near the door handle and the lock, the doorknob with the ram. He's here. Detective Tony James, he thinks he's behind him. Detective Miles Cosgrove, he's not sure which, but he thinks those two are behind him.
Which one had the shield?
Tony James, Detective James.
James one was behind him.
Yeah.
I do have a question. Is it normal for them to be standing on the pad while they hitting the door?
Yeah, I guess. That's and because of security, if this was a wider, this from my experiences, if this is a wider area, the only person would have been here, and they would all gone in an ideal situation. And as usual.
So they were playing. So they were playing as a unit. So technically, would be, you said Tom, the one that had the shield living in first, right? So he should have been in front of them.
That's a question.
For them, the office.
Yes, because that's, like you mentioned earlier, maybe that would be better tactics, but it's not for us to judge right now, for me to judge.
Right.
We're trying to present this.
Is it left or right?
Maybe, I think he's right hand, I do believe. I can't swear to it, but I think he's right.
What's Luther's first name?
Sean, Lieutenant Sean Luther. And we think he's back here. He's back toward the back of the stack. Somewhere over here, approximately.
So from what you were saying, there was a conversation going on with the guy upstairs while they were doing the banging on the door downstairs. So that was a promotion the whole time.
Right. And you'll hear some additional statements related to that about what was upstairs.
I'm thinking that all the weapons were drawn. They had the guns out.
As far as I know, yes, they did. And whether they had them low rated or high rated, I don't know. As of right now, we know Sergeant Natalie did, because as soon as he entered across the threshold after he was shot, he turned around. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. He said that when he came out, after he got shot, and after he came out, he fell off the curb. That was the curb to the parking lot.
Yes, over here. He backs out, scoots himself over.
And which officer did he run into?
He tripped over Detective Mike Campbell. Yeah, he was the one that was originally keeping eyes on him. But after they all got there, Detective Campbell goes up with the group. He's with the group.
So from this conversation, it sounds as if he, after he got shot, even got shot, then he turned all the way around, because we said we started going left or right. So when he said he came out, he went to the right. I'm thinking he went to that door number 3. But then he crossed the threshold, like he didn't get out to the right.
Well, the way I heard it, well, he gets shot.
Okay.
After he gets shot, he turns 4 shots. He's kind of here,
To the left.
to the left of the door, looking at it.
Yes.
He shoots 2 more times.
That's what
He's down, gets down on his bottom. At some point, he drops his gun, lets go of his gun, grabs it. Then he can't walk. Remember, he's scooting now. He's on his bottom. He's scooting back this way.
Okay, this one.
I think at some point he kind of staggers up, and then at some point trips over Detective Campbell. Over here something. Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to read a little bit more from Sergeant Madley's transcript. So at some point, I had not really learned from the witness interviews that Tommy held a listenership. Do you know whether that was utilized at all? You just got the man. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, but at some point, I never saw Tommy. The only face I saw that I could made out there again, everything was kind of like shadows to me as far as who was there. Remember somebody over here, which is probably Hoover, because he probably followed me out. But as I got up and left, I looked to my left to try to cross the doorway to get across. So this going this way.
Right, you said we across the door.
And I don't remember seeing in the door, but I saw Mike underneath the stairwell, Mike Nobles. The stairwell. Yeah, the stairwell's like this.
Right.
Stairwell, here's the door here, and I remember him crouched. Okay. So as he's leaving, he's Hoover's behind me, Madeline's going this way. He crosses the threshold. He sees Nobles underneath that stairway. Because remember, he drops the ground. He's yeah.
Right.
No, you ever remember him crashing down? I remember seeing his face. It's the only face I saw until I saw Campbell on the ground. Those are the only two faces I recognized as I was going on. Just because you're positioning on the right. Are you aware whether or not there was officers with you that returned fire? I don't know. Again, you know, I never saw them.
This is, let me see, this is their dead hall. They are getting together before they go in. One of them is the rear guy. One of them is him, and he knows there's two people behind him. I think there's two people behind him. In the course of this, some guy comes out of his door upstairs, picking his door up from babysitting. An officer at the bottom of the steps talks to him and gets him to go back inside. Tries to get him to go back inside. At the same time, the officers downstairs at that door are constantly knocking on that door.
Yes.
And they are not saying this is the police yet until they have this conversation with the guy upstairs. Then they start thinking that they're the police.
I don't know.
No, they said that every knock that they knocked, it was police.
Other than
They started. Remember, we're not gonna have discussion between grand jurors.
yeah, remember
His
if you go back to
questions.
go back to that, because he addresses that. Okay, here we go. Okay, here we go on the knocking. Okay, while he was in contact with him, the guy said, now banging, he's yelling back. Police search him over and over and over. So was Mike Noble was also knocking. Was it just you that did? I was the only one that knocked. Only one that was knocking. So was anyone else yelling police search warrant besides you and Brett, Detective Hankinson? Yes, multiple people. Okay, yes, kind of at the same time, yeah. All the voices just kind of how it happens. Carrying each other over, okay. So it was, most people were yelling police warrants.
After the conversations, Hankinson was having with the guy.
Hold on, there's another area here, I'm gonna check, I was looking for that. Okay, so you said you guys did initially announce. No, the first bang on the door did not announce. I think after that we did. And I couldn't be sure for the second. But again, there was probably 6 or 7 different contacts, multiple banging on the doors. And after that, each one of them had, please come to the door, search warrant, please search warrant. And I even remember Brett when he was arguing with this guy, where we were knocking going, please search warrant, please search warrant, please search warrant, please search. And he was repeating this. The guy had to know when the police. So from what I interpret what he said, they were after the first knock they didn't announce, and after that, police search warrant, police search warrant.
There was some confusion.
I'm sorry?
There was some confusion because they were talking upstairs.
Hankinson was talking, and you'll hear later that Lieutenant Hoover, Sergeant, we'll hear Madison. Lieutenant Hoover kind of tells Hankinson, leave it alone, let's just focus on
He was
this.
the one who was like,
This one had to tell the calm down. But the members there were not sure.
On the page. Okay, to more of the knocking issue topic. So I was basically in front of the back door of the other apartment. It's just right beside it. We all got in line. I knocked on the door, banged on it. We didn't announce the first couple because our intent was not to hit the door. our intent was to give her plenty of time to come to the door because they said she was probably there alone. So we predetermined to give her plenty of time to come to the door. Banged on the door, no response. Banging on it again, no response. At that point, we started announcing ourselves. Please come to the door. Please give a search warrant. While we're doing this there was a neighbor or somebody upstairs right on the staircase that started arguing with Detective Hankinson and Lieutenant Cooper. They were both given commands to go back to the apartment. He kept saying, I wasn't really paying attention to what he said. Something about leave that girl alone or something like that. But while he was doing that, we were still announcing, please come to the door. Please search warrant. And he banged, probably banged on the door six or seven different periods. Not 6 or 7 times, but 6 or 7 different times. Well, it seems like an attorney when you're up at the doorway, but it probably lasted between 45 seconds and a minute. Banging on the door, and that time I looked back and Lieutenant Hooper, he says, yes, go ahead and get it. Yes.
I just want to clarify that time we had signature after we did our paper. So they served this at around 12:40.
Correct.
The first 911 call came in at 12:43.
That's how that knows that.
So it's a span of 3 minutes. When they saw, the only light they saw was in the very back of the apartment, which was a TV, so assuming that person was in the bed. So there, enough time to answer the door was 2 to 3 minutes.
Apparently that's the time, but the zeros at the 12:40 time, I don't know. That's the time we were given approximately that they hit the door. I don't know if someone looked at the watch and said,
So that's
exactly.
not necessarily the time they knocked.
I'm sorry?
So 12:40 is not necessarily the time they knocked.
Well, I mean, it could be 12:41, but I don't know if anybody, they know they got it right on the scene at 00:35, 12:35. Also, it takes them to get there, so approximately 0:04, 12:40. You know there's a time, the 911 call, 12:43, 12:40, is correct, because that time is documented by 911 dispatch, specific.
Detective radio traffic from Hankinson at 12:40.
Yeah, that's right. Also, Detective Hankinson radio call came out at 00:43, 12:43, I think in 12 seconds. So all that happened
2 to 3 minutes.
2 to 3 minutes.
That's
Knocking, approaching the door knocking, gunfire exchange, gunfire, it all went pretty quick.
I know he said in there that as they were knocking and having this conversation with the guy upstairs, that everybody was getting on it. Yeah, because the testimony always.
Yeah, I know that's specific.
I didn't know where the shield is. Because it's like he doesn't know where the shield was.
Well, he knows that Detective James has the shield. He knows that he and Miles Cosgrove are behind him. Doesn't know which order exactly. He knows he's here. He knows James and Detective Cosgrove are behind him somewhere. He knows that James has the shield. But, and I'm thinking, I don't know why Detective James wasn't. Okay. The next, we're going to listen to 2 interviews with Detective Cosgrove, Miles Cosgrove. The first one was conducted with Detective Cosgrove of the Louisville Metro Police Department's Public Integrity Unit on March the 25th by Sergeant Amanda Seeley and Sergeant Jason Vance. And I'll remind you when it comes up, but the second interview was conducted with Detective Cosgrove on September 18th by myself at our office in Frankfurt.
This is Sergeant Amanda Seeley of the Louisville Metro Police Department's Public Integrity Unit. Today's date is Wednesday, March 25th, 2020. The time is 13:57. We are present at 3672 Taylor Boulevard, Public Integrity Office. This will be a recorded statement from Detective Miles Cosgrove. The statement is in reference to PIU case number 20-0-20-019. Present with me is Detective Miles Cosgrove, Attorney Steve Shoring, and Sergeant Jason Vance of the Public Integrity Unit. Detective, are you aware that this statement is being video and audio taped?
Yes, ma'am.
Does this meet with your approval?
Yes, ma'am.
Please state your full name and spell your last name.
Full name is Miles Cosgrove, last name Cosgrove.
What is your code number?
7519
Where are you currently assigned?
to narcotics, or correction, it's now called, Criminal Interdiction Division, CID.
How long have you been with that unit?
Just over 3 years probably,
How long have you been with the department?
15 and change.
Are you under the influence of alcohol, drugs, or any other intoxicant at this time?
No,
Are you taking any kind of medication that would affect your judgment or your ability to think clearly?
no,
This next set of questions are in reference to the actual incident evening of March 13th, 2020 at the Springfield address. Did you sustain any injuries during the situation?
no,
Receive any medical treatment?
no.
What type of uniform or clothing were you wearing at the time of this incident?
I was wearing what we call plain clothes uniform. I had my black tactical vest on with white police lettering. Under that I had, I think, a green long sleeve shirt. That might not, I had a long sleeve shirt, I'm not exactly sure the color. And then I had tan brownish colored 511 pants, cargo pants, something like that.
Okay. Do you have the same uniform or clothing on right now?
No,
Because of the statutory requirements of KRS 67C326, I am obligated to advise you of your constitutional rights prior to making any further questions. We won't be your rights with you. I've already filled out the place and the date. The time is 13:59. Before we ask you any questions, you must understand your right. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to talk to a lawyer prior to any questioning or the making of any statements, and to have him present with you while you're being questioned. If you cannot afford to hire a lawyer, one will be appointed by the court to represent you before any questioning if you desire one. You may stop the questioning or making of any statements at any time by refusing to answer further or by requesting to consult with an attorney prior to continuing with questioning or the making of any statements. Section would be for you that you've read. The statement, your rights, I can let you read this. Is that okay for me to do that with it being I?
Yeah, it just basically is, if you're waiving rights, and this is what you're saying, if you sign this form. So I've read this statement of my rights, I understand what my rights are. I'm willing to make a statement and answer questions, and not one lawyer at this time, which the lawyer is present. Understand and know what I'm doing. No pressure, no promises, no or threats have been made to me, and no pressure or coercion of any kind has been used against me. Basically, saying that you're acknowledging we're not twisting your arm against this stuff. I don't know what kind of
I understand.
this week's like that.
So, in your own words, the incident that occurred on Friday, March 13th, 2020 at 3003 Springfield Drive, apartment number 4. What happened, your involvement, and what actually you did?
All right. I'll start from, I guess, the roll call room. So at approximately 10 o'clock, we were told to, all of the narcotics or CID was told to meet in the roll call room to assist the place-based unit with several warrants that they were briefing. I was seated next to Prill, and we were assigned, I was assigned with John Mattingly Brett Hankinson, Tony James, Mike Campbell, who was actually already out there with the eye, and Lieutenant Sean Hoover. I believe that's all the folks that were assigned to go to Springfield. We were asked repeatedly during the briefing that this was a what I call like a soft target. We were asked that to please knock and announce, and to use our maturity as investigators to get into this house, to not basically hit the door, even though they had a no-knock warrant signed. So after the briefing, there was probably an hour or so for people to rally up at certain locations. And I proceeded to go to a church located on, I'm not really familiar with this area, like Manslick Road, St. Andrew's Church Road, where we were all to rally up. Our group was to rally up to go to our location. And we waited in this lot for half an hour or so. And while waiting at the lot, John Magley drove by the address to confirm where we were going. And Mike Campbell was on the eye, and I'd spoken to him, and he explained, where we were going as well. The route up to this place was explained to us as kind of tricky to get to due to how large the parking lot was for these various apartment complexes that were out there. So we wait in the parking lot for half an hour or so, and while in the parking lot, EMS is there waiting for us. So at some point during this waiting, a call comes out on the radio to everybody to move out, basically. So I call Mike Campbell and give him a heads up that we're going to be en route, which is about 5 to 7 minute drive probably from where we're at. I'm in the car. I think John is leading, and everyone's just kind of getting ready to convoy up there. And at the last second, Lieutenant Hoover decides to get in my car so we can consolidate bodies and not have as many vehicles going up to this area. So we wait at this intersection for a minute or so, and then we start up towards our assignment. In the meantime, there's radio chatter. I'm not really paying attention too much to what's happening on the radio. We take several turns to get to our apartment, and at one point, I think one of our cars took a false turn, and we had to slow down to get everybody back in the city. We get to the parking lot, our parking area, and everybody kind of peels off and parks in a close walk to the apartment. I end up parking next to a kind of a dumpster area to the right side of the building that we're going to. Everyone exits their vehicles, and we meet up more or less at the sidewalk area, sidewalk vestibule area to walk into this apartment door. I, being one of the last guys that had walked up, naturally my assignment is to cover probably the sliding glass door or the windows, exit points for people. The rest of the individuals are lining up on what I'm going to call the apartment vestibule, the entryway, kind of to the left of the stairwell that led up to the second floor. We are on the ground floor. So everyone's kind of moving to get into position, and I am standing more or less in front of the sliding glass door. And someone in our group proceeds to knock on the door and knock and announce. Typically we say police search warrant, come to the door. I'm not exactly sure what they said verbatim, but I know I did hear the words police search warrant. They knock and they knock and they knock, and this goes on for probably a minute. And during that minute, I am shining my flashlight into the sliding glass door and into this side window, which is more than likely a bathroom window that is to the right of the sliding glass door. And I'm just in this area seeing if I can see movement or shadows or lighting or challenging somebody. So I come around from the sliding glass door, because where I was initially standing, I can't see anything. So I come to kind of like where the sidewalk and the entry sidewalk meet, and I can see that Brent Hankinson is challenging a male individual who is standing in the door of an open door at the apartment directly above the apartment that they are knocking and announcing on. They have an interaction, Brent Hankinson and this gentleman upstairs who was told to go in his house. There's quite a bit of shouting going on. They're still knocking on the door, and Brent is dealing with this gentleman upstairs. It is very loud, and the gentleman upstairs says something like, and again, this is not a quote, but I hear something like, leave that girl alone, or there's a girl there, or something like that. So the command to hit the door is given by someone in the stack. At this point, 2 minutes has probably gone by, possibly 2.5 minutes has gone by. I'm still standing at the sidewalk, kind of the T intersection at the end of the stairs, closer to the sliding glass door than I am to the front door. Most of the stick is standing to the left of the door. And the command is given to go ahead and hit the door, hit it. Mike Nobles has the ram, and it's his responsibility to now open the door. Mike Nobles hits the door once, and that's when I realized that Mike Nobles does not have what we call a cover 2 person, meaning that Mike Nobles is now exposed, and Mike Nobles, having a tool in his hand, a heavy ram, has no way to protect himself. So I see that Mike Nobles is in a vulnerable position, or about to be in a vulnerable position, because he doesn't have a cover person. Most of us are stacked up to the left side of this door still. Mike Nobles hits the door again. On the first hit and the second hit, the door just does this bowing, flexing. And I see that Nobles doesn't have a cover, so I am walking, speed walking, kind of fast walking to Nobles' position. Mike Nobles hits the door a third time, possibly a fourth time. I am now maybe a half step to a step behind Mike Nobles when the door actually breaches or when the door opens. Due to my position, I really don't have a good visual of inside of this apartment, because I'm looking at basically still the door from where the door opens. We call this first light. So the folks on the left side of this door would have first light, meaning that the door opens more to the left side of the door. So John Mattingly, who at the time I didn't know was John Mattingly. John Mattingly is the first person that enters the threshold of the door. And my assignment is now to go in behind this person that goes into this apartment. So I'm probably a step, half step behind individuals that are entering this apartment complex, or this apartment. I'm immediately overwhelmed with this darkness. It is extremely dark in this apartment. As John Mattingly is more or less just past the threshold, the door frame or the doorway, I see blinding, vivid, white light, and I see blackness at the same time. This dark, deep black, and these vivid white flashes. At the same time I'm seeing these flashes, I know that John Mattingly is at my feet. I'm also not hearing anything. It is completely mute. These flashes continue, these white, vivid flashes in this darkness. And I know that someone is at my feet, and I am still at the threshold of this doorway, like the threshold, the welcome mat area of this door. And John, or this person below me, is shuffling around me, moving around me, and I believe at one point I'm standing on this person that is below me. I know that someone has been shot, that John has been injured. I continue to see this blinding light, these vivid white flashes, and I see this darkness in front of me, followed by, and this is hard for me to explain, but I see this distorted, shadowy mass, this figure in front of me that is just, it's coming and going due to the flashing light. This is all happening again in seconds. I'm still standing in more or less the same spot on the threshold. Again, I can hear nothing. It is completely muted. There is no sound. I turn and I see that John Manley is being pulled or scooched back or is somehow moving back from behind me. I know, or I'm fairly positive that before me turning to look at, to know that he had left or to know that he's being moved, I'm almost positive that I had fired or were firing during those flashes and during that vivid, white and black and gray colors I was seeing. So John is being moved or pulled from behind me. So just take 1 second here. So I realized that John is being moved, and I also am moving backwards or leaving the threshold, this welcome mat area of the door. John is being kind of shuffling on his butt, and folks are pulling at him. This is all occurring between the doorway and between the stairwell, so in a kind of a confined space that we're in. I still see these vivid white flashes, and I don't see darkness anymore, but I'm seeing this vivid flashing, and I'm starting to see a bigger picture. I'm not sure if that makes any sense, but I'm starting to see more things. I don't know how else to say that, really. Because from when I was inside, when I was in this doorway, I'm not really seeing any. I'm trying to say that.
I'm trying to say the apartment was illuminated. It's starting to become a little more illuminated.
No, it was becoming smaller inside of this apartment during those flashes, if that makes, I don't know how else to say that. So they're dragging John out of this apartment, and I'm starting to see again, like see colors and shapes. And, so John is drugged behind some cars in the parking lot, and I must have taken a different route. We are now in in the parking lot behind where cars are parked, pretty much right in front of the sliding glass door. I said, unfuck yourselves and reload, because I knew that I needed to do that. So I went ahead and reloaded while hiding behind this car. John is being attended to by folks. I look up at this apartment knowing that there's still a potential that we may have to encounter somebody exiting this place. And I see that we're still kind of in a precarious spot due to where we had decided to treat John. I told Hoover and probably other folks that were helping John that we needed to move. And there was a car parked in the parking lot roadway, a larger car of some kind. And whoever was helping John, kind of drug him to the rear tire left side of this car. And Hoover asked for a tourniquet. And I give Hoover a tourniquet out of my medical pouch in my vest. And Hoover goes to put this tourniquet on, and it looks like it breaks. So I have this overwhelming sense to leave, that we need to go. So I run back up to the dumpster where my car is parked, and I get my car, and I drive my car down to where they're working on John beside this SUV. I know that Brent Hankinson I assume he's on the radio, because he sounds like he is talking to the radio, and he is very loud. I pop the trunk of the car and I get my AR-15 out, and I see them still working on John. I go to my glove box and open my glove box and get out all the other trauma stuff that I have in there. And I dump all this trauma stuff onto John's chest, and then I go stand kind of the rear section of this car SUV so I can cover the apartment, because we are still standing more or less in front of this sliding glass door. Hoover is trying to hold John down to put on a tourniquet or to do something, and John is just thrashing about in pain. And I try and hold him down with my foot so Hoover can do something with him. And I'm still trying to cover the sliding glass door area. Hankinson is yelling to ram the gate. And I'm not exactly sure what this gate they're talking about is. It was briefed in the parking lot of the church that the route we were taking was a little odd because of what I assumed was construction. But apparently there is some kind of vehicular gate that remains closed in these apartment complexes for whatever reason, probably to keep them separated. So Hankinson is yelling very loudly to ram the gate, and then the next thing I know, there is a patrolman there, and his car is there. And he is helping Hoover and the other individuals treat John. And I can overhear Hankinson talking to EMS or talking about EMS, or I know EMS is close, but they don't know where we are exactly, or they don't want to come up to us. I'm not sure what EMS is close. And I figure, put John in the trunk of the car, or on the trunk of the car. So Hoover and this patrolman, whose name is Combs, I don't know his first name, and that may not be his name, but I believe his name is Combs. Combs and Lieutenant Hoover and somebody else drove my car to EMS, which is located on the opposite side of where this gate was rammed. So now myself, Mike Campbell, and Hankinson are the only folks in this parking lot covering the apartment. I would say a minute or so goes by and we are just watching this apartment. And Mike Campbell says something to the effect of, I hear somebody, or he hears somebody or something. About that same time, the patrolman comes back, and he is now on the left side of me, and myself, this patrolman, Brent Hankinson, and Mike Campbell are behind where cars are supposed to park in the parking lot, facing this sliding glass door front door of the house apartment. Mike Campbell says he hears an individual, or hears noise in there, and I tell Mike to attempt to call this person out. Mike is winded, be a good word to use, and Brent Hankinson automatically takes control of calling this individual out, while myself, Campbell, and Combs are covering the doors of this apartment. I would say some time goes by, a minute or so, a minute or two goes by, and an individual, a male individual, comes out of the apartment. And my view right now is very limited due to the cars and due to the stairwell on the side of this house. So all I can see pretty much is a torso of a person. And this person is moving very, very slowly. Almost slow motion, not because of any physical aspects. The person was just very, very slow to move, taking tiny steps, if that makes sense. Brent Hankinson talks to this individual, and he comes back to kind of like where the base of the stairs are in this apartment vestibule. And a patrol dog is suddenly on my hip, and I can feel it breathing. And the canine officer goes over to Brent and kind of verbally takes over, giving commands to this individual. And when the canine officer gave commands, this person seemed to walk normally, I guess, or act naturally. I noticed that Lieutenant Hoover is back now. I don't know if he had left or he'd never left, but now Lieutenant Hoover is back, and I'm telling Hoover they're dealing with this person, and they're being very noisy, and we are still trying to cover this house. So I told Hoover to move him, get him out of here, because we can't we can't communicate with each other and still work this house due to how short we are of folks there. So the guys moved, and we continue to hold on this house. To my left, there's some kind of commotion. I tell some individuals that are close to me just to keep holding on this apartment, and whatever is going on to my left, they'll figure it out. I think we must have been there holding on this apartment for a while, I don't know, several minutes. And finally, SWAT shows up. Now, during this gap of time, additional folks are coming. But as soon as SWAT shows up, they pretty much took over what was happening, and I kind of just went and stood in the rear of the barrier, out in the safe area. And then SWAT did their thing, And they came out and said, or at some point it was said that everything is safe. That's kind of it, I think.
Well, we're talking about the animal there. So when you said you kind of stood behind the bear, going on from there, did peer support make contact with you? What did you do at that point?
Okay. I hadn't really thought about that.
We're not going to talk about like conversations. I'm saying like on his actions.
So I'm kind of hanging out in the safe area behind the bear, and I'm not exactly sure what happened in that kind of time frame. At some point, that's right. Cole from narcotics is staying there talking to me, and we just kind of walk around the parking lot. I think he's just there walking with me. So I'm just kind of walking in this parking lot, I guess, taking it in, or I guess that's what it was, just walking in the parking lot with Cole. At some point, we are told to kind of go away.
So you make contact with peer support, and then does peer support provide you transportation here to PIU?
Yes, I'm not exactly sure when. Michael, I think his name is Michael. At some point I came in contact with Michael, which was probably 10 minutes or so before or Steve showed up, possibly.
Right, so you ultimately end up being brought back to the PIU office. And
yes.
There was round counts and then photographs. And
correct.
All right.
Can we go into that?
No, you're good. Sergeant Sealy.
We have some photos, apartment complex, that we just, we don't have a street level because Google doesn't have an actual street level.
Yeah, so this is an overall of the scene location, and then we've actually labeled this apartment building where the incident occurred as subcategory A, if you will, and the gate that divides the two properties. And you said yourself, as the gate was here to make a clear division between this apartment living community and the one that was adjacent to it, and we labeled that B. This is kind of like, to give you a visual reference of what we're, as we go through this. And in this photograph 2, is a closer photograph of the actual apartment building. And this is where this is where the incident took place. This isn't a picture, the day of the incident or like that, so these cars are just, they don't matter. But the parking spaces would. So, to go back, from the beginning, when you guys came down, you mentioned that you all got separated in your, as you all were lined up as, you call it like a stack of vehicles.
Correct.
Because if you don't factor in that you can get access to this location with that gate not being there, to get to that location, it's kind of a puzzle. It winds, and you don't know how to, where this is at. It's kind of hard to get to.
Correct, yes.
So you all, end up getting here, parking. You mentioned you and Lieutenant Hoover were riding in your vehicle, which is what kind of car is that?
Silver Nissan Altima.
Okay, silver Nissan Altima. So you guys get up here, kind of go back through. You may not know this. Was there a vehicle parked somewhere in here as you all approached?
Yes. There's a white car here, or I don't know if it's an SUV, but it was a bigger car. It may have been an SUV, but there was a white vehicle parked literally right here. It's behind this parking space.
Did you guys have to address that before you actually got into a position for injury?
No, let me go back like an hour earlier before we even got here. Someone had come to our parking lot, or maybe not, maybe this is just dumb luck. But Cole's tires on his police car and John Manley's tires on his police car had been either purposely cut or they had both ran over the same nail in the parking lot. So prior to us leaving, John, who normally drives a dark colored
SUV?
I think he drives a Dodge SUV, maybe. I was going to say Charger, but he doesn't drive the car. So basically, John switches his cars out at the last minute, and he's driving, and I've never seen this car before, something like 1998 Pacifica or something like that. I mean, it looks like the Breaking Bad car, like some hideous white thing. So I assume this vehicle here was John's vehicle, because he had led the stack up there. Now that doesn't make any sense, because we would never do that. But, you know, with the confusion of coming down here, that is a possibility, and that's whose vehicle I thought this was John's borrowed car parked right here. I normally wouldn't do that because that is tactically elementary. You don't park in front of the place you're going. You just don't do that. So I thought that was John's car. And most of us, I think, are parked way, like you saw on the pictures, way over here.
Okay.
But no, we did not address it, or I didn't address it. I just assumed it was John's car.
Okay. So, once you guys make approach to the location, you described that you're kind of hanging out, on the sidewalk, and you have the patio door.
Correct.
So to verbalize the layout of the apartment building is that it's 2 floors. The target location, as far as you all are concerned, is apartment 4, which is on the first floor. And there's a staircase, an open staircase, that leads to the second floor apartments.
Correct.
And the patio door that you were speaking of is immediately to the right. It's the first patio door to the right into the entryway of those apartments.
Correct.
So you're holding that patio door. And then, if you don't mind, we're going to go back through what you did. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, so that's why if I say something that's incorrect, I want you to correct me. So you go in, you eventually make your way into the entryway, and at some point, Detective Hankinson has a verbal contact with a resident on the second floor. But in the process of this, you realize that, and you said it perfectly, that Detective Nobles, who has a breaching tool, is not armed and cannot be armed because he has a breaching tool. He has no cover. So you fill up, as part of your training, you come up and you are now considered his cover.
Correct.
So you come up, and now we'll address this as we're looking at the door. So we have a left-hand side of the door and a right-hand side of the door.
Correct.
So if you're looking at the target locations door, Nobles has the ramp on the right, okay, and you're his cover immediately behind him. I think you said a step or so behind him, so it's pretty close.
Yes.
But enough to where he has full motion where he can utilize his breaching tool. Would that be correct?
Yes, but had I been there, had I been doing something correctly, yes. But I think just by me walking up there, that was just happenstance that I happened to be that distance away as he is working. Okay. But yes.
And before, and I'm trying to set up the positions, and we won't get to entry just yet. But so at that point, if you're looking at the target door on the right-hand side, you have Nobles, yourself, and then to the left you have Sergeant Mattingly, and then who else? Do you remember?
I don't really. I know who was there, but I don't know what anybody else was doing.
Okay. Are you confident to say that Hankinson was behind you? Because of the verbal contact he was having?
Yes and no. Hankinson was initially in the stack in this area, and I'm here.
Okay.
Hankinson addresses the guy, and then when they go to hit the door, people move around.
Right.
So I'm not sure where anybody is at that point, because I'm here. I'm not really paying attention to what. Why would I watch them? They're doing their thing. I didn't do my thing. So when Nobles hits the door, I hear the door being hit, and that's when I see that there's no cover. I forgot what question you asked me.
Yeah, that's okay. That's all right. We're going to walk through it as slow as we can. So before the door is actually forced or breached, you all knock at the mounts.
Yes.
Can you kind of describe that whole, I mean, I know that there was kind of a long period because,
Oh, the knocking and announcing, it gives me chills to think about how long we stayed out there. Knocking and announcing on a door is nerve-wracking. And then to knock on the door, have to challenge somebody who we've obviously disturbed by our noise and commotion that we're creating, and then to have to continue to knock on the door again, that is like, I don't know how, I mean, that's nerve-wracking. I don't really have a word to
and why is it
say that.
Because it's an unknown threat.
Because you have this building, this room, this house or apartment that you're going to go into here initially, and now you are letting people that are in this house or apartment, you're telling them your cards, basically. They know that you're outside because you're knocking and announcing. And that's telling them they're the police outside and we have a legal reason to come into the house by the word search warrant. By being out there for that extended amount of time and folks not coming to the door, either they're not home, which is the best thing because nobody's home, or they're in there formulating some kind of plan to either do me harm, to do the people around me harm. I mean, nobody cares if they're in there destroying evidence. That's really beside the point. It's that they're in there and they have this time to plan to do something, and that is the nerve-wracking part. Is you're standing outside, you don't know what this plan is.
And to kind of go back, I apologize. I remember you saying that you actually tried to illuminate the apartment from the outside with your flashlight.
Correct.
Which is, I'm assuming, one of the newer flashlights, which is very bright.
It is not the newest one. It is the one that they gave us like 2 or 3 years ago. The baby brother of the new one, I guess.
But it's not the old maglite.
Oh, definitely not.
Right.
No.
So there's an LED light bulb and
Yes.
or light source.
When you were here, before you moved up, could you see any light from the patio or the?
No, there was absolutely no light. And peeking your head in the window is ridiculously dangerous. And normally you wouldn't put yourself in that position, but when you're not going to announce it for that long, and if you're fairly confident that nobody is in there, then you might peek into this room. And I would say that I definitely got closer than I should have to look into these windows or these doors to see if I could see anything. And I saw darkness. There's absolutely no ambient light of any kind in this apartment. Nothing. It is completely dark. From my light source, anyways.
So to kind of go back to the door, you know, and we've already talked about the duration of time that you guys knocked on the door, announced your identified yourself as police, and also identified your legal authority and search warrant.
Correct.
So, and at some point, Detective Hanson has verbal contact with the second floor resident. Do you people remember anything about that, detail-wise?
I just know that again, I'm still kind of far away. So I know Hankinson is saying, he used the word "sir, go back in your apartment," and they are both very loud. The resident and Hankinson are loud. And the guy, and I hate to say it, but the guy he had an attitude towards us of leave her alone, or leave that girl alone, or something. And that's not a quote, but that's partial of what I'm hearing over Hankinson shouting and us talking in my distance.
Okay.
So they're having this loud, this loud talking back and forth that goes on for a good while. And I don't know if he actually went back inside before we did our thing, but this went on for a while to where, you know, it just felt like we were out here forever. We were just out there for a long time.
So the decision's made eventually that you guys are going to make entry, that you're a forced entry.
Correct.
Which you had already been briefed on, and you were told that you had legal authority to do that. And you had a warrant with them, right?
Yes.
To serve.
Yes, correct.
So you talked about Nobles hitting the door, and again, we'll talk about the left and right hand side of the door. Nobles is on the right hand side of the door, and he is, utilizing the ram to breach the door. And at some point, the door is breached.
Yes.
And if you can, with detail, go back and kind of run us through that. And I know that, the best you can. I mean, I'm not expecting you to be perfect. Just whatever you remember.
So again, I'm standing in this, what I'll call like this T intersection right here where the building and the sidewalks come together. Because my ultimate job is to stay outside and watch the store, even when these folks go in the house. That is my job. And again, I see Nobles from this distance that he does not have a covered person on the right side of the door. And I'm not exactly sure where everybody else is. I assume they're on the left side of the store, but I see Nobles does not have cover because he has a heavy tool in his hand and cannot protect or defend himself or the other folks that are with us. The door is hit once, and I see the door bow, and that is probably when I realized that it is now my job because watching this door can be left alone for a second because Nobles is in need of a cover person. And I've always tried to find a job to do while doing these things, and that was the most important job that I saw that needed to be taken care of, was to go be Nobles' cover. So Nobles hits the door again as I am fast walking to Nobles. So now I'm fast walking towards the right side of the door. And I pretty much can only see Nobles and a sliver of the door due to the angles and whatnot, and due to Nobles moving his body. Nobles hits the door a third time. The door is hit probably a fourth time. The door opens on the third or fourth hit, and at that time I am a half step or a step behind Nobles, more or less the spot that person should have been in the first place. So the door is open. Nobles has to obviously get out of the way, and we call it cover one and cover two. So I'm the cover two person. And I mentioned what we call first light. First light is whoever can see into a room first.
And not to stop you, but I wanted to kind of explain that. So if you're looking at that door, the hinge is going to be on the left-hand side, and the door would open from right to left. Would that be correct?
No, the hinge is on the right side.
Are you sure?
That's the side of the door Nobles was standing on, so you would normally hit this side of the door.
Would you hit on the hinge, or would you hit on the actual knob?
You would hit it around the knob area.
Right. So what I mean by the hinge, I mean like what?
Oh, yes.
What the pivot's off of.
Yes.
That's what I thought you meant.
The pivot is on the left side of the door where most of the folks have stacked up. That is probably where I would have stood too.
Right. So the door opens from right to left.
Yes.
Which, as you said, and it is very correct, that the person on the left-hand side would have first light. That means he would have the most tactical position for entry.
Yes.
And your job is to fill in to cover two, which would be the second person's.
Yes, and to communicate with the cover one person if I see something that he doesn't see. But due to the door and due to my body position, having to kind of hurry up there.
So at that point, Sergeant Mattingly, who is cover one or his first light,
yes.
He begins to clear and then make entry into the apartment. What I meant by clear was clear his spaces, because it's kind of like about our tactics.
Yes, so somebody, John Mattingly, enters the apartment, and again, due to my spacing and my kind of out of positioning that I was in, I'm not sure. I think I'm answering your question. So the first person goes in, and I immediately go in after this first. I want to say go in. I position my body to go in after this first person.
So at that point, when Mattingly begins to make entry, there's not immediate, but relatively immediately a threat.
Correct, yes.
So kind of go through how you determined the threat. As far as, was it Madeline's responses, his actions, whatever?
So, as I'm at the threshold of this doorway, I see these vivid lights, which I know are not natural, not normal, and should be happening. And I know that those are gunshots, or that is a firearm being fired. And then within the same 1 second, there's a person, John, at my feet. That, it's quicker than I'm talking is how quick that happened.
So at that point, John's shot. John had sustained a gunshot wound, and he has fallen. Is he sitting on his butt, or I know you may not know the answer some of these questions.
I know that John is sideways, kind of. If that helps you. He's sideways, and I feel that I am standing on part of him, his ankle or his hip or his calf, or I'm standing on. I feel like I'm standing on something.
You're making contact with his body in some.
Yes, and about the time that I stopped feeling this contact is about the time that I stopped firing. But again, that happened in like 2 seconds.
So from I know what this is the way these things occur. So John goes to make entry to the apartment. There's a threat. He perceives it. He's shot. He fires. And is it? And I don't want to answer for you. I want you to tell me. Do you perceive it in the same? I don't want to say milliseconds, but in just a very short period of time, and you guys are almost firing at the same time, or is it?
I don't know. I just see this flash, this vivid flash, and this distorted, shadowy figure. And I thought this would come back to me, and that's all I see is this distorted, shadowy figure, and these flashes, which are obviously a gun being fired.
But you knew that John had been shot, and you knew
Yes,
that John
I knew that clearly, that John had been shot.
Okay.
So the figure's is it in
The figure is in the apartment in front of me. Now, I assume I'm in the threshold of the door, so it would probably be in front of me. But then again, that is not.
You've got 15 years on as law enforcement, and in your experience as law enforcement, what's one of the first things that you lose under a stressful situation? Fine motor skills, would you say? Everybody.
I have experienced it a few times, but not to this severity. This loss of hearing, this muteness was it was
Debilitating.
It was disturbing. It wasn't real. And then this shadowy figure it's shrinking, if that makes sense. And it doesn't make sense to me, but the world is becoming really vividly black and white.
You having like tunnel vision? Does that?
That would be a good word. I'm having this tunnel vision.
So your view is becoming
Yes,
smaller.
my view is becoming like a periscope or binoculars kind of view.
Believe it or not, it's common. It really is. I know it's disturbing kind of when you're coming back and you're thinking about it, but it is common.
And the fine motor skills you talk about, I did not have any hand sensation in my hands. We've all fired weapons here, and you know that they have a distinct feel to it. And I did not have any hand sensation or any recollection that I'm firing a gun. If you told me I didn't fire a gun, I'd be like, okay, I believe you. But due to the fact that those flashes were happening, that is why I believe that there is gunfire.
So at some point, Mattingly's discharged his weapon, you've discharged your weapon, and Mattingly is still in a position to be, and you yourself,
Yes, we are standing. I am in the doorway. John is more or less John is in the doorway. He may not be standing under the doorway, but he is in the doorway. We are in the most vulnerable position we can be in, is in this doorway, exposed to whatever is happening everywhere. We have stopped all of the people behind us, the other policemen, from coming in because we have now constricted this doorway because we are standing there. So the only places for me and John to go is either go forward, which makes no sense at all, or to go backwards. And to go backwards over a person that is obviously underneath you is not something I would want to do.
So to kind of go back there, and like I said, if you don't remember, just say you don't recall, because I don't want to try to put the words in there. So, you know, at that point, you're still in that, what we consider the fatal funnel.
Yes.
McNally is down, he's trying to get out of the way. You're not sure you can even back up because you're worried that maybe you trip over him, I don't know. But at some point, all you all are out of that location. Just go back through it if you can. If you can't, it's fine. And kind of go through it and what you remember, if you remember, details of how you all evacuated out of that little breezeway, got to the parking lot.
Okay. I am very positive that I looked at John when I felt that he was not there anymore. So I feel this void, this emptiness, like there is nobody there. And I turn and I see that John is kind of scooched a little further behind me. Now it may have been a scooch of inches. And that's when I had an unconscious decision to move, because John is obviously in the right direction to go now. I really can't expand on that because it happened so quickly, but I sensed that it was time to go. And so, go. I don't really remember doing much in the vestibule area there. I don't remember touching John until we kind of got to maybe this area here. And that was briefly because we couldn't all squeeze through the cars there. I know when I got to when I'm still in the vestibule there's still flashing happening, but my vision is expanding. And I think maybe at the tunnel vision, my vision is coming back to normal and I can see colors.
What are you seeing?
I'm seeing what I'm supposed to be seeing. I'm seeing the stairwell, I'm seeing the concrete, I'm seeing John shuffle and push himself and people grabbing him. I see Mike Campbell on his ass. I don't know if that makes sense, but Mike Campbell is on the ground, maybe. And then this is still kind of as I'm in this confined space here. I still have that muted noise. I don't hear anything. I would say about the time that I got out of the covered space is when I started kind of coming back into it. I'm sure there's a scientific word for it, but I don't know what it's called.
And at that point, once you evacuate yourself and the rest of the team out to the parking lot, other than like providing a tourniquet and first aid and stuff like that, your primary position was a cover position for the officers that were providing that.
Yes, I would say so. There was people that you got to find a job. People were working on a job, so my job would be to make sure that there's no more danger from this building.
And the positioning was not secure because you all were immediately outside the windows.
Yes, we would have been more or less in this area here, and that's when I said we need to move again we were still in a precarious spot, but at least we had distance and 2 cars between us and the windows.
From the time, you may not might be able to answer this. From the time that you start to move from the breezeway or the opening, do you hear shots or you don't hear shots?
I don't hear any gunfire at all, ever. I hear nothing until I'm in this area is when I start hearing people. I don't hear gunfire anymore. The white flashes, I'm still seeing them, which doesn't make sense because I'm not firing. But I still see white flashes as I'm. It doesn't really show it, but as I'm exiting the opening of this apartment building here.
Do you recall where the white flashes were coming from?
Not at that time, no. It was just, it's like my brain was kind of like overloaded, if that makes sense, and it was kind of coming back into focus, kind of that fuzz that goes away. So, no, I know they weren't coming from us, like from the parking lot, if that makes sense.
To your knowledge, was the scene altered in any way? Did you guys have to, what I meant by this, did you guys have to manipulate anything that you would consider evidence?
Oh, no, I never went in. I never went back.
Well, even the exterior, like we would consider the whole thing.
No, some things would have gotten kicked around, obviously, but nothing was disturbed or picked up or thrown away or that I know. I didn't do anything.
And as you stated, you stayed on scene until SWAT secured the location?
Yes, and then probably until Steve showed up 20 minutes, 15 minutes later or so. Or longer, my time was kind of disturbed for that and stuff.
Are there any questions we have not asked you or any other information you have that may be beneficial to this case?
I don't think so, no.
Is there anything you want to state for the record before we end? Is everything you told me the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
I just have one question. I think you covered this adequately, but just to make sure that it's clear. At the time you were in that doorway with Mattingly, did you have any question in your mind that your host lines were in danger?
Absolutely not. I knew for a fact that we were in danger of being killed or seriously injured.
That's all the questions I have.
Conclude. The time is 15 minutes.
Any questions? Yes.
Very beginning it says it was soft something. What does that mean?
Soft target.
Yeah.
I think when they're using it, they didn't believe that there was a danger there. It was going to be a relatively. I believe in their terminology, what they're referring to as a soft target, and they didn't anticipate any issues or any danger with that target. Else? Yes, ma'am.
Do you know the actual lineup at the door? Is that because
That is something you'll have to listen to, and because of all the interviews, everybody can agree on who is there. As far as what specifically all of them say, they really can't say specifically where everybody else was at.
I got most everybody mapped except, was there anybody behind James? So it's Natalie James, and then was there a third person there or not?
Well, you'll hear more interviews, but you'll hear Lieutenant Hoover's back there. You'll notice in Detective Cosgrove's statement, there was some variation between where he says he was, and between where Sergeant Maddox was.
Because he was behind the doors.
He's Lieutenant Hoover, you will ever hear from him later, but he was part of that team that was the extra search. Yes.
I heard this officer, or the detective, say that he was right behind Natalie, and that he was on the threshold of going, he was the second person.
Well, I think if you first listen to what he said, he was kind of vague specifically, but then he can remember someone being around. Later on, he figures it's Sergeant Matheson. But then he remembers at some point stepping on someone, which he later was to be married. So his account is somewhat vague.
That's what I'm hearing you say. From what it sounds like he's confirming that the other officer was actually inside of the door, and he was at the threshold.
Well, like I say, I can't speak to specifics, but as far as whether he's this far in or his vehicle right here, you can only go with what their testimony is.
Right. My next question, do these officers have to make drug tests after shooting?
I'm not sure on that. When I was I'm a retired friend of this department, if I was involved in something like that, I would have to go out on those places.
Is it normal for an officer to run out?
You know, that's something as officers, detectives, you don't want to judge, I'm not going to judge, but it is not common when you hear reports that say the people, not just officers, people involved in a stressful situation, losing fine motor skills, or I think somebody referred to tunnel vision. I'm not saying that's what he was experiencing, but somebody brings it up, but that's not uncommon. Not just shooting people, car accidents, that's not traumatic event.
I want to have one other question. Previous officer said that when we entered there, and it was pitch black. There was no lights. And then we started to see something. But other than that, there was no lights.
Well, that's kind of consistent, I think, but what we've heard so far.
That's all I can say. Oh, right.
Ready for a break?
Yeah.
Please stop the record then at 3:27.